Welcome to the Bible Forum. This is Warren Sprouse. We're here every Sunday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern. We talk about life from a biblical perspective. This was the week we heard about Supreme Court decisions. The justices, they hear these cases throughout the year. They deliberate on these things. They get together, they have a vote toward the end of their session, and then each week decisions come pouring out. The justices' one-sentence opinion this past Thursday marks a major setback for the administration, effectively killing the plan that they had in mind for the duration of Obama's presidency. Now, the judgment could have significant political and legal consequences in a presidential election year, highlighted by competing rhetoric over immigration. As the ruling was announced from the bench, pro-immigration activists filled the sidewalk in front of the court, some of them crying as the ruling became public. Critics of the policy touted the ruling as a strong statement against executive abuses. What was clear is the fact that the Constitution of these United States specifies that the President of the United States is not permitted to write laws. That's the job of Congress. The decision was a victory in our fight to restore the separation of powers, said House Speaker Paul Ryan, adding that the ruling rendered Obama's actions null and void. What are we really talking about here? Well, it was a 4-4 tie, Scalia is gone, that left standing the appellate court's decision as they reviewed and ruled on the original court decision relative to how the government would handle immigration. And several states had gone together to sue the government because through executive action, the State Department, the immigration people, whatever, were allowing immigrants who are here unlawfully to get green cards, to have work permits and that sort of thing without going through the regular processes. The state said this is not right, and the court agreed with them. And so the government appealed that. And the 3-panel appellate court agreed with the original decision. So it was appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. And here they split 4-4. And as I said, that leaves the prior decisions in force, but only until we get another justice. Once there's a full court, this thing can come back up again. And the thing that was really stark to me was the fact that 4 of these U.S. Supreme Court justices voted against the Constitution. The Constitution is very clear, and they voted against it. Why would they do that? Well, they feel sorry for these people. I don't remember the last time anybody in that position ever felt sorry for me, but they felt sorry for these people, so they violated their oath in order to vote against the Constitution. They wouldn't say it was like that. They would say, no, this is case law and this is the way this goes. But does the President of the United States have the right to circumvent the Constitution in order to get what he wants? Half of these justices said yes. Do illegal border crashers have the legal right to a green card simply by means of an executive order? Or does the Constitution require Congress to pass laws on this issue? A person who crosses into the U.S. without a visa or other legal document is what? In the eyes of the Constitution, they're criminals. In the eyes of this president, that person is a desperate person risking their life to escape whatever the circumstances may be, up to and including death. And that, of course, makes this a special occasion, something we as a generous society are honor bound to recognize and to help. We're there to protect them, to care for them, to save them. It's the only humane thing to do. But what saith the law? The subtext in all of this is the fact that the first judge caught the government attorneys lying in open court on 3 occasions. He's not happy. He issued, I think it was the whole State Department, whoever these people were, he sent these people back with the order from the court to take lessons in telling the truth and ethics and things like that. It was that bad. But he had asked repeatedly if anybody had been given a green card under this executive order, and he was told on 3 occasions no. Later on, I guess he subpoenaed something or did something and found out that well over 100,000 of these green cards have already been issued. And the judge ruled that the government was in violation of the law and ordered the government to produce the names, the records on these 100,000 or more immigrants, because he plans to revoke them. To say that he was upset with these lawyers is as big an understatement as you can make. Things like this, lying in court by lawyers, is just not done. Where will this go? We're not quite sure, trusting that the law will be the law and they'll work this out. But in the distance, the Washington Examiner is reporting that U.S. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas is talking about resigning. Following a tumultuous year, they claim, that include the legalization of same-sex marriage, death of fellow conservative Scalia, court insiders say Thomas is contemplating his retirement. Thomas was appointed by President George H.W. Bush, approved by the Senate after a soap opera. To say it was a contested confirmation, that doesn't do it justice. It involved allegations of sexual harassment, all kinds of things that were never able to be proven. In April, the difficult period in Thomas's career was immortalized in the film Confirmation. Kerry Washington played Thomas's accuser, former colleague Anita Hill. Court sources told the Examiner that Thomas has long considered retiring and never planned to hold the position until he died, unlike others. But his retirement will impact future court decisions. As you saw in this, it's 4-4 right now. If he retires, it'll be off balance in a liberal way. Now, there are at least 3 other court justices, Supreme Court justices, Kennedy and Ginsburg, and it seems to me there's another, who would probably retire any day or die. We're not sure. But it wouldn't be unlikely to see a high court with a majority that was 7-2 against the Constitution, against Christian values, against U.S. sovereignty, against common sense. A Trump presidency wouldn't do anything but maintain the status quo. A Clinton presidency would keep the liberal court in power for at least until 2050. 2050. 34 years? Is that right? What happens on the other side of the border? What happens when Mexico finds illegals in their country? And they do. Immigrants are coming up through Central America and into Mexico. They arrive at the Mexican border in Reynosa. Their hope is to be smuggled illegally into the U.S., the coyotes and others, through a criminal organization known as the Gulf Cartel. Mexican authorities caught a group of 17 Central American individuals inside a house in the border city of Reynosa just a week or so ago. Police responded to an anonymous tip of kidnapped individuals at a human stash house in the neighborhood. Information provided to Breitbart.com. The Central American individuals from the two groups were in Mexico illegally. They were taken into custody by Mexico's National Immigration Institute, the agency tasked with their deportation procedures. As Breitbart previously reported, in recent years the Gulf Cartel has been pushing hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens through the Texas border region known as the Rio Grande Valley. The move has been profitable to the cartel, but it's also overwhelmed the resources of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, and it is setting off a humanitarian crisis. Mexico builds a wall to stop people from coming into their country. When they find people who come into their country, they send them back. And they don't do it nicely. They are almost ruthless in the way they handle these gate crashers. We, on the other hand, we embrace them. We look the other way on just about every law that's been passed to protect us from not only criminals but people who have medical problems and diseases and other kinds of things, and to have an orderly transference wherein we will know where they are. None of that happens. And now these people are guaranteed that they do not have to take an oath of allegiance to this country. They do not have to become Americans on any level whatever. That's what's happening to our country. And then they are being shipped by bus, by train, by plane to small communities all over the country. Many of them into liberal communities. Many of them into communities that just cannot handle them. But the federal government doesn't seem to care. The goal is to take care of these poor people. You know, we had no immigration in this country from about 1930 until the middle of the 1960s. None at all. We allowed no immigrants in. There were people who got in, but they had skills or they had relatives or they had something. There was no immigration of any kind. We don't have to let these people in. We have an administration now who says if we don't, we're not being Christian. I'm not going to say any more.